We begin with the end. The hanky dropped Friday on a lawmaking session for the record books. Your state lawmakers passed an unprecedented $117 billion state budget and more than 300 new bills on the way to becoming law. Some already have. Some in the Republican supermajority called the session epic. State Democrats have some other choice words. Among the controversies and party line votes, did you know the vast majority of the bills did pass with more bipartisan spirit? So why don't we start right there with the Speaker of the Florida House of Representatives. Paul Renner is live with us today on the program. Mr. Speaker, it is so good to have you on the program today.
Great to be with you, Glenna.
So I want to start with, this session, there were some headlining controversies, a lot of party line votes that made the news, a lot of state division that made the news. But I was so intrigued to see that I think the figure I saw, 9 out of 10 bills passed with bipartisan support. So I want to kind of start there with something that's pretty monumental, and that is kid care expansion. The expansion of the component of Medicaid, that was one of your big priorities. This was the first sort of Medicaid expansion in the state in 25 years and allows more families to qualify for insurance for their children. So I want to start there a little bit and talk about, this is a function, I'm guessing, of a whopping budget that you were able to work with.
Well, it is, and we did a couple things. Of course, one of the issues that does divide us is abortion, and we took a strong stand for life in the bill we passed. But what I've said is that we want to make sure that children are well taken care of once they come into this world. And so we did a couple things. We also raised the reimbursement rate for pediatricians that see young children on the Medicaid program. More than half of all children born in Florida are born into families that are on Medicaid, that program for those that have very low incomes. And so we said we want to make sure that when they go see a pediatrician that they're not, in hiding somewhere not wanting to see them, but we pay them well. So we've gone from one of the bottom states to one of the top states in terms of what doctors that see children get paid, which means better access, better quality care for our children. And then you mentioned kid care, and what that really says, and I don't see it as much as a Medicaid expansion as much as it is pro-family and pro-work, because essentially on kid care, you pay $10 or so, $10 or $20 per child on that program, and you make $1 extra when you go off that program, and your charges go from that to $250 per child. So we literally had people coming in and saying, can I do an affidavit to turn down the job promotion that I was offered so I can keep my kids' health insurance? So what we've said as Republicans is, look, we believe in going from welfare to work, and that's really what this is. And we also believe in families and supporting our families and our children. So you can make an extra dollar, and we kind of tier that out. So rather than going from $10 or $20 to $250, it may go to $50 or $75 to $100. It's more gradual, so that as you make more money, your rates do go up, and you eventually get to that full price of $250. But not right away. It's what people call the fiscal cliffs that have been set into the welfare system, which are really damaging and are a disincentive to work and getting off of welfare. So we want people to get into a life of independence, and that's what that great program will do.
So there's something you said that I want to just go back to. You seem very reluctant to call this an expansion of Medicaid. This month, in the past couple of months, because of the end of pandemic standards. I think the figure is something like 900,000 people in Florida are about to lose coverage. Why not do a Medicaid expansion with the kind of budget we have, especially since most of that is federal dollars?
Well, for this very reason, we have the money available to us to raise pediatric rates. We have the money available to us to take care of children. Florida's Medicaid system has a robust coverage for the true safety net, children in poverty, the elderly, the disabled, those who simply can't work and support themselves on their own. And so what the Medicaid expansion is typically described as is that Obamacare Medicaid expansion, which is mainly over 70% are adult, working age, non-disabled adults without children. So these are people that are of working age, they're not disabled, they don't have children at home, they, if they worked even half time, could qualify for one of the exchange plans and get some subsidy for their premiums. So I am very strongly opposed to that form of Medicaid expansion, because what it does, Glenna, is it doesn't leave us the extra money to do more for those that are on the true safety net, where 90, 100% of us agree that we want to take care of people who can't take care of themselves, like our children in poverty. It's not their fault that they're in that situation. We want to make sure they have the very best health care available. And by not doing that large Medicaid expansion for those that are able to work and just are choosing not to, we can provide more money for children and the disabled and the elderly.
Mr. Speaker, another priority of yours, I know, and you actually were on this program just after it was filed, the universal vouchers, one of the first things to pass, one of the first things that the governor signed, really a sea change in Florida education, depending on people's perspectives, up or down, right? So one of the components that we've looked at and talked about, and I want to get your perspective on, is even to this day, it launches next year. People with families with kids from kindergarten to high school can choose whatever school they want to go to. But even the House analysts aren't really sure of the costs. And then there are questions of how the accountability for education will work. Are those concerns at all as we ramp up to what is a huge change for education in Florida?
Well, Glenna, there's been a recent estimating conference, and at that estimating conference are members from the governor's staff, the Senate, the House, but also significantly each and every one of the 67 school districts. We have 67 counties. So all of Florida's school district superintendents also signed off on that estimate. What we did, though, is we set aside a very large amount of money, not only for any potential oversubscription to that program, but also something great for the school districts, because they get an amount of money per student at the beginning of the year. And let's say Miami-Dade has an influx of an extra 20,000 kids. They don't get extra money. Their amount per student just goes down until they can get that trued up at the end of the year. And that may take months or even a year to get that money back. And so what this additional fund, it's $350 million, will do is make sure that never happens. So the school districts can draw down that money so they remain at that $8,500 or so per child throughout the school year, even if they have additional students come into the school districts, which is unrelated entirely to the school choice program. But here's what I'll say about school choice. When it started under Jeb Bush 25 years ago, we were at the bottom of all states in education. And what school choice does is it means that there's not only an interest into the schoolhouse, but also an exit door. You're not stuck in the school that you're zip coded for, but you have an opportunity to leave and go somewhere that best suits your children's needs. And from 25 years ago, when we began school choice, that competition has made our public schools better. And now we're at the top. And in fact, we've been #1 in higher education for several years now. We were just ranked by U.S. News, I believe it is, as #1 in education overall. So the #1 state in the country, and that is in large part because of the competition that school choice generates. Now, what the bill does is a few exciting things. First and foremost, children with disabilities like autistic children who have been on a wait list for those choice programs will be cleared completely. And that's a large part of the funding that is in this bill, so that children, for example, with autism will have those special additional services that they need to live a life of independence. It also removes all the income caps and says anybody in Florida can go wherever they want. And then finally, it provides what's called an ESA, so it's not just a scholarship to a private school, for example, but a homeschool kid could say, look, I want to partner with my local district school, say in a physics course that is a week into that class, and traditional public schools. So it really goes in all directions. It means true customization for each and every family, each and every student.
This is something that other states have done, and so it'll be, to your point, really interesting to see the effects. Mr. Speaker, I think there's a couple of glitches in the technology here, and we have to take a break anyway. So why don't we just sit tight for 2 minutes and come back and talk about a couple of other things before we let you go?
Sounds great.
All right, thanks. We are back with Florida's Speaker of the House, Paul Renner, with us live this morning. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to, we have relatively short time together always on television, and to know the leader is to know the man. So I wanted to get your personal perspective on a couple of things. This has been a session that a lot of people tagged as the culture war session, the divide. There were a lot of bills to that end. You mentioned the abortion restriction bill, the restrictions on things like teaching, sex, health, gender health. And I wanted to get your perspective on that word culture wars. When people talked about that, when you saw the division on some of these things, take us on the inside. How do you hear that?
Well, the way we see it is we took a stand for not only children, but in defense of childhood. Unfortunately, there are some activists that want to obliterate that distinction. And so we have said, look, let kids be kids. Let's not have indoctrination or sexualization of our kids in school. We have almost half of our kids who aren't reading on grade level. We need to focus on that. And one of our bills this year that, again, is in that 80–90%, that was a priority of mine, is making sure we devote extra resources, better methodologies to getting kids on grade level, both in reading and math. That's where the focus should be, not on allowing activists into our school to sexualize our children. And that's simply not right.
So, you know, if we had, it is not my place to take a side or not, and I have no horse in this race, but I have heard a lot of the opposition who take issue with the word indoctrination. For a lot of people, their families and their lives may not be what other people call, you know, their families and their lives. And a lot of those people you saw come to Tallahassee, travel to the committee meetings, and speak very pointedly, very personally. And some of those people expressed real fears, not about what might technically be in the bills and be new laws, but perceptions and chilling effects that those bills and laws might have. And that perception is very real to a lot of people. And I wonder if you would speak to those fears and address those constituents who do have real fears with some of the changes being made.
I think those fears are completely false. They're politically motivated, but they work, you know, and so they go out with some help from friendly media outlets that say that somehow we're against anybody. We're not against anybody, but we're for children, all children, whether they're gay or straight or what have you. We're just saying that let's focus on allowing kids to be kids. And so that's what this has been about. I think it's been a fantastic session for children. You know, one of the things we did in our tax relief is make sure that baby formula and diapers and strollers will no longer have sales tax imposed on them, so that when parents bring a child home from the hospital, they can have a little bit more money in their pocket to raise that child. It's been a very, very pro-child session, and it's unfortunate that people have tried to weaponize that, but I can tell you there's nobody in my caucus that has anything against anybody, but that's the narrative that they run with, that if you don't support me or if you want to do something that somehow you're a hater. Nobody's a hater, but we do believe, and we will stand up unapologetically for the right of children to remain children at a very young age. And this idea that we're going to allow books in there that, you know, teach kids how to hook up with a stranger for sex when they're in middle school is just not appropriate in a classroom setting. We need to focus on education, and that's where we'll remain our focus. We're number one in education for a reason, and it's not because we let activists take over and come in between our kids and their education.
I want to go back to what you were just talking about a little bit, the tax cuts that you've made for families across the board and for some business as well. I think I saw $1.2 billion in tax cuts coming down the pike on different things, consumer goods. Is that a function of this budget, $117 billion? Is this a sustainable budget? Is this a budget that is flush with money from pandemic era like ARA money and federal money? Can you, as a lawmaking body, go forward in the next couple of years and sustain this kind of spending?
Yes, because this is a balanced budget. We have a balanced budget requirement. We set aside, after all that spending and that tax relief, it was actually about $2.7 billion when you count the out years and some of the local effects and whatnot. We have a balanced budget. We have the highest amount of reserves we've ever had. So this is a very, very healthy budget. We're AAA credit rating, rated by all the credit rating agencies. But we were allowed to do other things when it comes to affordability beyond tax relief, such as Senator Pasadomo's great bill on affordable housing, making sure our workforce, our teachers, our nurses, our police and fire have a place to live and they don't have to drive an hour to work. That was major legislation that doesn't get talked a lot about because it's not controversial. We also reformed our litigation climate, which will bring down the cost and when it comes to affordability on people, and did other things that, such as hurricane relief, providing support, and also new legislation to improve our mitigation techniques to make sure that the next hurricane will be even more prepared than we have in the past. So there's a lot out there that is not in that 6 or 10% of things that are controversial that people would be incredibly proud of. What I would say is we have a governor who gets results done. You know, we have Washington, D.C. that can't fix anything on issue after issue. When we came and talked to people about what are your concerns, well, the hurricanes, affordability, affordable housing, we solved all of those things. Data privacy, making sure that your data is not scooped up by the Googles and Apples of the world and sold without your knowledge or consent. And again, protecting our children so when they go on CoComelon or some video that they're not having their data scooped without the parents' knowledge or consent. These are really important things that we did in this legislative session that don't get enough airtime. So I appreciate you giving me that chance to do so.
Well, I want you to know that Senator Pasadomo was with us. We talked all about the Live Local Act as well. And actually that was sponsored by Miami Senator Alexis Calatayud. And so we absolutely are addressing all of those things. We have very little time. You have a lot of bills to talk about in the minute we have left together. What was left undone? What didn't you do that you were hoping to do?
You know, I would say none of those things. I met with my chief of staff and we went through a 5-page list of priorities, many of which we didn't even get to today, and every single one of them, Glenna, happened. And so this was the most productive state legislature. And again, 80 or 90% of it would be agreed upon by 80 or 90% of your listeners that has ever happened in the state of Florida's history, but I would say in any state's history. And that's testament to a fantastic governor that works well with us, a fantastic Senate president who I have an excellent relationship. And that flows all the way down, including a lot of the bills that we talked about that I had Democrats involved in because they were ready to go. We did a lot on sickle cell that affects a lot of African Americans in our community. We did things that have not been done when Democrats were in charge for over 100 years. And so we're focused on addressing the real life problems of Floridians and making their lives better than they were before. It's not just about, you know, the issues that do divide us, but it's really about solving real problems with real solutions. And I'm confident we did that this year. There's nothing left, but we'll have more to do, I'm sure, when things come up next year.
Mr. Speaker, it's great to have you with us. I know there are a lot of people in your caucus and a lot of Democrats who have so many different perspectives and arguments and debates, and some of them are actually having a rally in a little while. But we appreciate your leadership and so appreciate your time on this Sunday.
Thank you, Glenn. It's great to be with you and your listeners.
Thanks.